Thanks for joining us today on this webinar, Preparing for a Productive and Profitable Year. So we're delighted to have Nic Kentish join us to share some practical tips and tricks to kickstart the year and make it a good one. But first, I just want to take the time to acknowledge the traditional custodians from the lands we're all dialing in from today, and just pay respect to their ongoing respect and connection to country. We can all learn from each other with that respect for this beautiful country. So my name is Bonnie Jupp and I'm the RegenWA Project Manager here at Perth NRM. This webinar is supported by Perth NRM and Lottery West as part of our Collective Impact project. And so before I introduce Nic, or before Nic kicks off, just want to make sure everyone's got their mics off for the time being. But Nic and I just had a chat before, and really happy to make this quite an interactive session so that we can all get the most out of it. So if you do have any questions as Nic's going through, he's more than happy for you to use the little hand icon to raise your hand. And, you know, Nic's happy to stop then and there to reiterate something or go back a few slides. So feel free to do that. But just please use the raise hand first instead of turning on your mic and jumping in straight away. We'll sort of try and keep it like that. And then there will be time at the end for some more Q&A. So if you've got some things that you want to ask or discuss further, then jot them down or keep in the back of your mind, because we'll have an open chat towards the end. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Nic to get stuck into it. Thanks, Nic.
Thanks, Bonnie. It is always an honour to work for and with RegenWA, because I think of all of the states in Australia, you guys have got a healthy respect and regard for all types of systems. And regenerative agriculture has not always had its day in the sun, and it sometimes paints itself into a corner because regenerative taking folks one way means there must be some people going another way and degenerative, and that wouldn't be a very good thing to try and engage people in a conversation accusing them of being degenerative. So we don't go there. We tend not to go there in many places interstate. But in RegenWA circles, it's great because you can have this conversation, and it's pretty healthily respectful. So I like it. So I'm a farmer by trade, and I took up teaching of farming about 20 years ago. Teaching low stress stock handling schools was the fun part that I do, and I still do that with low stress stock handling. And then I got into the teaching of this kind of work with RCS. I'd been a client of theirs for 15 years, and then I came around the other side of the desk and wanted to teach back. So that's what I do, and I'm just a hobby farmer now, but I spend a lot of time looking at other people's farms and working alongside them to look at being productive and profitable all year, every year. So this is quite a nice topic. So my farm was beef, lamb, and potatoes, which was a sideline that got out of hand. And I wouldn't recommend potato growing to the faint-hearted, or probably anybody, really. I think vegetable growing is a really tough game. And from experience, it's a fast way to get yourself into trouble. And I got a lot of experience in getting out of trouble. So it just makes me experience to getting out of trouble all the time. So what I wanted to do was just roll through what we think is a bit of a hands-on, or what I'd love to even think is that we can teach an incoming generation how to set themselves up for a season. So imagine if you were in a hospital bed I don't wish this upon anybody, but you're going to get better. Imagine you're in a hospital bed and you have to describe to an 18-year-old who's just finished school and come home and wants to dig into the farm, and you're thinking, I wish you'd go away and work somewhere, but you're thinking, well, if ever I need you, I need you now. I'll have to describe how to evaluate the season from my hospital bed. And so the season evaluation needs you to be a good planner and be prepared, and to be able to teach that preparedness, I think, is really critical. So there's always a starting point, and the starting point is not here yet in South Australia, and it's probably not there in Western Australia. I doubt there's too much green about. There's certainly none here. So rains will come sometime, and it will require activity, but it's probably not a good thing to start on the day that the rain comes. Thinking about what you would do in order for that to hit the right starting point, ideal. So we look at it like this, and we divide our themes at RCS into 4. So you've got the people sitting on a comfortable tripod supported by the legs of land and production and business. And if those legs are all the same length and strong and comfortable, the people in the pot will be comfortable. The people on the tripod will be comfortable. But if one of those legs is weak, then it's going to tip over. It's going to be very hard, and the people inside it can detect it's getting wonky very quickly. And you'll know instinctively which one of those in your whole farming enterprise needs attention. One of them will need attention more than another, but that means we don't take our eye off any of them, but we need to work on one more than the others. So, the land leg has got to be a combination of land and water and soil, the management of land, and probably incorporate some people as well. So I would ask the question of you to ask yourself, how resilient is your land and water and feed right now in February 2025? Could you get caught with stock to feed that should have been sold? If you're looking at animals now and you're going, the market's not that good, but if I have to feed them, what will they owe me at the break of the season? Who knows when the break of the season will be, but if it's an average, I don't know if your average is similar to ours. I think it is at around about Anzac Day. That's great. But if it took until the 25th of May or even the 25th of June to stop having to substitute feed, are those stock going to owe you a lot of money? Is your country rain ready? Is your country able to take in little or lots of rain, and will you have little to no runoff? Will it soak in well? In sandy soils, it should be the case, but I've even seen sandy soils erode. How did you go keeping your ground cover over summer or even last season? Have you improved on the 23-24 year? And it's all we can hope for, is just gradual improvement, because sometimes it will blow away. It breaks down and blows away, and ground cover will oxidize. So when you add carbon and oxygen, you get CO2. So you get slow decay, and so up into the atmosphere goes all that precious ground cover that you were hoping to hang on to. Some of it may go into the soil if you've got some good microbial activity, but a lot of it will go straight back to the atmosphere. So you might as well have set fire to it in the first place. I'd rather you don't, but it's just going to go back there quickly or slowly. Either way, it goes back there. Have you rationed your standing feed as well as your substitute feed? So what I mean by that is, if you looked at your standing feed when you realised there was no more growth coming back in November or whenever that was, and then said, okay, well, I'm going to ration my standing feed out for the next 6 months to my core livestock, and also I might have some hay in the sack or grain in the silo. Have I rationed that out as well? Am I going to run out partway through, and am I going to need to buy some more in? Is that really a good idea? Your feed prices over there will be in parity with ours over here, but I saw barley straw the other day making $385 a tonne on farm. You had to pay the freight. That's going to make an animal very expensive by the time you fed that out for 4 months. Have you got adequate feed supplement on hand? And by that I mean feed supplement, not substitute. So feed supplement is like a nitrogen-based lick. We advocate using loose lick. You need to be a bit careful about how you administer that, but it's very good for stubble conversion. Will you be able to take advantage of early rain? What happens if it comes early? Are you ready? Like, I don't know, an early rain would be, say, getting 50 mils over a 2-week period, over an extended, nice gentle 50 mils over a 2-week period at the end of March. Do we pull the lever then and say, right, we better get into it? And what are we going to do if that's the case? What we're going to plant and what are we going to graze? And what will we do if it doesn't rain until June or later? That is a late season. I have heard some people say they got some unbelievable crops because once it started raining in June, it never stopped. So that can also be, it can be very tough growing grass when the ground is so cold too. And that can impact a lot on lambing and lamb survival and lamb growth rates, which is critical to profitability. I want to underline everything that we talk about at RCS by saying you must stay in business. No matter what you do, no matter how fanatical you become about regen agriculture, the regeneration of your bank account is probably the most important thing. So I will say it again and again and again that the coaching that I would wish to give anybody is first and foremost how to stay in business. Having said that, production's a fun thing to look at. So production is and productivity is often the focus, and that's the talk we have on the front round of the footy club. Production. It always helps with the more production we seemingly get, therefore the more profitable we ought to be, until you drill into it and find that it is possible to spend $1 to make 90 cents. And I have to say the wool industry is really suffering at the moment because spending money in the wool industry on aiming to increase productivity in wool alone, not surplus sheep, but in wool alone, is generally not helpful. I say generally. I would say in 80% of cases that I've analysed, the wool prices are just so ordinary at the moment that it's best to focus on surplus sheep and harvest the wool for sure, but focus on surplus sheep and getting good value and good production with them. So that'd be lambing percentage and growth. The business is not a person. The business hasn't got a personality. Business doesn't even have feelings. You can do what you like to the business. You can jerk it and twist it and pull it and mold it to whatever you want. And if you want the business, if you want to wake up one day and go, you know what, today's the day to start making our business very highly functional, like really spot on business. I'm going to tip a heap of crap off my desk that shouldn't be on there. I'm going to get really au fait with a good filing system. I'm going to know where my stuff is. It's critical. The business is there to serve you. I said, I want you to stay in business first and foremost, which means you'll have to make some compromises along the way on your regenerative journey. Something you might want to write down, I haven't got it here on a slide, but it just came to my head, is that a coach of mine said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So make sure you're ready for a very long ride. So how resilient is your business? Is a question to ask yourself. Do you know when your budget will be in surplus or deficit in the coming year? You probably are still relaxed and working off the 24-25 cash flow budget right now, and you've probably got all income that's going to come in has probably come in by now. So hopefully that's put you in surplus, but it does have to last a while, and so you're going to have a drawdown effect on that. You're going to need to invoke maybe an overdraft facility sometime. If you're in deficit now, it could be problematic. So that's what if that is the case, if you're in deficit now, get in touch with your books quickly and work out how deep that deficit's going to go, and then work with your bank to figure out how you are going to cash flow that deficit. How much overdraft will you need from the bank, and when will that top out? Overdraft by definition, to me, would mean that you clear it at the end of the year. So on the 30th of June, your overdraft or very short-term borrowings are all paid back. If they're not, by definition, it's a short-term loan, not an overdraft. So just be careful when you're thinking. The reason I say be careful about the overdraft is often the overdraft can grow and grow and grow and grow, and it's more high interest mostly than a term loan, short or long. So maybe it's time to change that, roll that into a short-term loan or even a long-term loan, and restructure your payments there. Is your office well set up for the rapid collection of data and information? By that I mean, if I were to come into your office and go, righto, quick, put your hands on all your account sales for 2024-25 so far, how quickly could you lay your hands on them? And I see a lot of people say, I'm going to go paperless, and their paperless office is definitely paperless or doing not a bad job. Trouble is they can't find anything. The recollection of those files is really hard work, and because it's hard work, they don't look at them much unless they're kind of asked by some annoying consultant from RCS comes along. Can your business cope with a crop failure this year? What would how on edge is your business? And if you were to plant a crop, with ambitions of it being a beauty of a season, pretty much like last year, I think most of you guys ended up with a bumper. It's one of the biggest years on record in WA's crop. But in South Australia, for instance, most crops were disappointing, verging on failure. Some people just got their seed back, and some people didn't even harvest. They just cut it for hay, and there was not much of that. So how many of those can you cope with? You need to sit down and have a long discussion within the family. If we are exposed to the cropping industry, and there's a lot of good technology there now, that means that it's de-risked, except that South Australia showed this year it wasn't that de-risked. There's a lot of seed and fertilizer in the ground that's probably never going to come to anything. And have you got a person short policy? That's not a short person policy. That's a person short policy. Means what happens if, like I just inferred before, Dad breaks his leg and goes to hospital and he can't drive a tractor for seeding. What are we going to do in that instance? Hopefully it does not happen to you, but it would be terrible if you had a great season and everything was delayed by a month or two just because you didn't have a person short policy. Now, it's not that easy to teach someone to put a crop in, but you're going to have to just think about what you would do. And the person short policy might be that we shorten up on the crop, on the planting, or we maybe make sure that it was spread out as best we can. Not all got to go in April if it's an early season, or all go in if it's a late season. I love to think that planning and preparedness are symbiotic, but they're not the same. Because the moment a plan's made, it's obsolete. You see, you've got to make a new plan. Even if the plan hasn't been enacted, that plan that's in the bottom drawer is obsolete. But the act of planning is the important part. So if you make plans and season changes, then you just have to make another one. And so to be prepared is to be able to act within your current reality. So we've done that planning. The more planning we do, and the more we have it up on the wall and say, in the event of this, in the event of that, that's called trigger points. And to be prepared is the most exceptional quality that I see in most farmers. The most successful farmers, and often we get asked this question in consulting, what's the hallmarks of the best operators that you see. And the hallmarks of the best operators, without fail, is they are prepared, really, really prepared. Being prepared requires planning for numerous scenarios. So I'll show you a couple of those directly. We'll just look at what it might be for March, April, May in a decision-making phase. Precaution is being able to enact a scenario when the timing requires action. So this wouldn't happen to any of you guys, but over here in South Australia, I see people do things late. Obviously had something go wrong and they were late. And unfortunately, everyone can see. They try and hide it. But they're generally late because they hadn't taken precautions for whatever reason. They hadn't done maintenance. Repairs and maintenance are the bane of a cropper's existence, probably, unless you really love fixing machinery. Most people who love fixing machinery don't like paying for it, but it's an expensive business. We got to suck that up. But generally, the more maintenance we do, the less repairs we have to do, hopefully. So we've got to have both of those done. So ask yourself, am I making an operational, a tactical, or strategic decision? So they're very different. Operational is very short term, tactical will be mid-term, like within a year, and strategic spans across years. So for operational, for instance, right now, if you're lucky enough to have a cover crop, you're going to be thinking about terminating it. Are you going to mow it out? Are you going to spray it out? Or are you going to harvest it with livestock? So all of those have upsides and downsides. And so the operational decisions that a week, next week, week after, next month, whatever, is how do we intend terminating that given the season? Tactical decision making might be, for example, planning your grazing management. So we would say that you're accumulating feed when it rains. We are optimizing the feed when it's probably still raining, but the grass is well and truly grown. It's green and it's weight gain grass. And then we're rationing that grass out later on in the non-growing season. And I'd say it's pretty easy to accumulate and optimize grass for most people that have got an inkling. What I do see is more difficult is how to ration it out, because we don't know when it's going to rain. And so we have to have a tactic in place, but that'll be a yearly thing. As each season changes, the tactics change. But you see, the guy on the right-hand side of that fence is a different person from the owner of the left-hand side of the fence. They obviously have two totally different tactics of how they manage that season. That's looking out over that country, and that's looking out over that country, but from exactly the same camera position. So you can see two totally different tactics there. The strategic decision making is for across spans years. So you invoke a strategy that says, in this instance, we manage for year-round ground cover. Some years we might have to plant some, like a multi-species cover crop like that, or some years we let the pastures run and grow out and go to hay, and as long as we can keep dry lightning away from them or fire away from them, they'll be really good in the non-growing season. They'll be a good source of food earlier on. They'll be a source of roughage later on, and with a bit of supplementary feed, like a bit of nitrogen in the diet, we can balance that carbon and nitrogen ratio up and make that a half decent feed source. So we've got to think when we are talking to ourselves or to the colleagues in the business, are we making an operational, a tactical, or a strategic decision there? So here'd be a scenario. Now, what's going to happen in March? Might rain. Be great if it did. Want to be a good one. The feed quality will fall to very low. So if you get rain in March, it'll wash the nutrients out of your feed, wash the energy out of the feed very quickly. So anything that you were depending on carrying you through will now actually be washed out. It could be a false break. You all have your own trigger point of knowing when's a false break, but sometimes a bit too good to be true. You might get a follow-up rain before Easter. Well, that'd be good, because Easter and Anzac Day are quite close this year. So getting a follow-up rain, you go, whoa, looks like no one's going on holidays at Easter. We better get busy. The only good thing about it not raining until Easter is you can go on holiday. You would say best do a feed budget. If you're not doing feed budgets, I'd learn how, because it's another hallmark of good graziers is that they're doing a feed budget and they're projecting out a month or 2 months or even 3 months ahead how much feed they've got. And if you wanted to take on agistment, say, you really want to be able to tell your client how long they can stay there for. It's not just a random number you've picked out the air. So doing feed budgets means you can be a good host on agistment. Now you're also your own agistee, insofar as you are two people all rolled into one, and you as the owner of your sheep or cattle are paying your business to have your animals there. And so to do a feed budget and know that you're comfortable for a period of time is very, very empowering. Maybe it won't rain in March. Well, upside is the feed quality remains reasonably stable. It's going to oxidize a bit, but it'll be better than if it does rain. Your protein levels will fall. You may well have quite adequate carbohydrate. It might not be too bad, but your protein levels are going to fall, so you'll need to monitor that closely. And maybe doing some dung samples, sending dung samples away for an NIRS test. So look up near infrared spectrometer test, NIRS, and you'll see what can be done. I'm sure your labs in Perth can do that for you, but it'll tell you what the animal really is needing, particularly in carbon and nitrogen ratios. You're sticking to your current grazing plan. You'll go, well, it didn't rain, so I was not caught out, so I just had to stick to my plan. Sometimes to not rain makes life easier. But all it's doing is staving off the inevitable decisions. Again, I do a feed budget. If you're wondering what to do each day, jump in the ute, go for a water run, when you get to every gate, estimate your feed on hand, and then also estimate how long it's going to take to eat your way through that. What will happen in April? It'll rain, maybe. The feed quality will fall even lower, obviously. It's closer to the break, obviously. You get a follow-up rain before Anzac Day. That would be good. Or you have green pick in phase 1. So green pick in phase 1 is that short feed. It's the best time for barley grass as a feed source, and probably a bit of Cape feed as well. It's very high in nitrates. And quite often, people put hay out to they call it supplementary feed. It's actually substitute feed, but they put that out to balance out the excess nitrogen or nitrates in your green pick. Unfortunately, the hay often has good protein source in it, so the animals they've got a big tummy ache from excess protein from the green pick, and you're actually adding fuel to the fire by giving them more protein. So what you want to do is keep some straw on hand, and quite often it's just a bit of straw and roughage they need to mop up all those nitrates. Green pick is often its own worst enemy, because if you could leave grass alone at the best time, it would be when it's at that green pick and let it get up and going. But you can't be nowhere, you have to be somewhere. So maybe you'll keep a paddock aside as a sacrificial paddock whilst the green pick gets away. Again, did I say do a feed budget? But it may not rain in April. So the feed stocks are now very tight. Your protein's 0 and your energy is very low. You're getting to start to tear your hair out, because you can see the end of the haystack or the silos running low. And, you know, to keep hay in the shed this year when it's worth in excess of $300 a tonne, and to keep grain in the silo when it's selling pretty well, you might go, you know what, I'd rather the cash. So I should cash out, and that will mean I have to make some stock changes. So stocking rate changes could either mean you find someone else who's got some grass and go on adjustment there. Don't know how plentiful that's going to be for you in certain areas. There's often a paddock available for adjustment. In Queensland, going on adjustment is more common than people going on holidays. They take their cattle on holidays before they take themselves on holidays. In South Australia, it's not. We're a bit of an island here, and you guys are definitely an island in Western Australia, just with a very big land bridge. So where you go on adjustment could be limited. Otherwise, stocking rate changes might be selling large mouths that they might not be quite finished, because you sell large mouths to replace them with small mouths, or you just sell mouths altogether and put the money in the bank like the animals are still in the paddock, and then restock when it does rain. Again, do a feed budget. So, what will happen in May? I don't know. It will rain early or late. Possibly it's getting too cold to get much growth. You decide to supplement your A flock or your A herd. You decide to destock your B flock. You've already done, because you're prepared, because you listened to what I said, you're already prepared, and you've divided everything up into an A flock and a B flock. You might even have an ABC flock. You've decided to send any adjustment home that you had taken on. You might have decided well and truly before May. You want to use in condition score 3+ for lambing, and that will require some feed. So either it's feed that you've stored away in the shed, or it's feed that you kept in the paddock for a rainy day. You might have some native pasture or something that's not half bad in May. You need a high protein diet of lupins in your ewes, just to see them right, because they just cannot get enough protein as they are in their last trimester. And you might, if you've got cattle on, you've got some sacred cows that you just do not want to sell, you better, I'd say probably I should have put that back into March, April, but it would be being prepared of where you would go. So keep talking to people who have grass. They might be out east, way out east for you guys. And they may have some pretty good paddocks out in the pastoral area there. Again, do a feed budget. Or it won't rain in May. Gee, it's getting late. You've got some big decisions to make. Use supplementary or substitute feed to get you through to a safe date in late August, because not much is going to happen in growth in pasture between now and then. You got to sell down to the next level. I think also asking clients what's the best thing they've ever done for drought management, they'll say act early. So sell down to the next level. If you sense that things are not good and you'd like to live in a little bit more luxurious position, or it's not even luxurious, it's just giving yourself a bit of leeway, and you have saleable animals, it's better to sell down now. If you have used lambing, say used lambing in May, you're going to have to start considering quite soon what you're going to sell if it doesn't rain by then, because they have to move a lot sooner than May. If you're going to sell them profitably and ethically, you have to move them a lot sooner than you really, got to be more than 30 days prior to the first lamb dropping that you move them. Again, do a feed budget. You're probably going to get very sick of me saying do a feed budget, but it's the hallmark of the best operators. Well, what will happen in June? Possibly it's already too cold to get much growth, as I said before. Decide to supplement your A flock, decide to supplement your B flock, decide to send adjustment home using condition score 3+, high protein diet lupins. Cows definitely off on adjustment. And if it won't rain, your feed budget should have told you that to be totally destocked. There's nothing wrong with being totally destocked. Your adjustment bill may be way, way, way less than the feed bill if you can go and find a paddock out east. Decide if you can afford to lose a crop or what you could get away with planting if it was extra late. So you might just be ready with a barley crop to bang it in really late, and you've got a cut-off period sometime there to bang it in. It's getting pretty desperate if you have to wait till June. But be ready for that and try to preserve as much money as you can. So when you're selling animals, it's hard to do, but it's a lot harder than watching them die in the paddock. Sorry, not as hard as watching them die in the paddock. And when they are preserved, almost the honour that you pay them is by putting the money that they earned you from that sale into a holding account, into a bonded account. So you can't go paying bills. Don't go selling ewes that you intended to keep or cows that you intended to keep and pay bills with that. It's bad practice. You couldn't do that when they were alive and in the paddock. So now what you need to do is preserve your feed and move those animals on, put the money in the bank like they're still in the paddock. Here's a bit of a decision-making tool that I find quite useful for looking at what you need to factor in for planting a crop. So here's 10 years of distribution of crop gross income. So you can see some were really low in year 4 and some was wonderful in year 5 and all the rest are in between. So what we do is we realign those from lowest to highest. So now in year 1, we can see a logical progression, but that's not actually how it went. But we can see that we have quite a range there between the bottom and the top. We've worked out our average crop cost per hectare. Inherently, it costs us nominally $350 a hectare to plant a crop. So if your income is less than that, then by definition, it's a loss. If your income's higher than that, by definition, it's a profit. Yeah, well, yes, but what year are we talking about? So I'm going to say that in this distribution, in this area, wherever this might be, you've got 4 out of 10 years, you will yield less than $350 a hectare. And in 6 out of 10 years, you'll yield more. So it costs us $350 a hectare at contract rates. That's a failed crop. So there's no income with $350 a hectare cost gives you a negative gross margin of $350. That's a low yielding crop with income 175. Again, costs us $350 a hectare, gives you a negative 175. Up here is a reasonable crop with a reasonable income of $450. $350 cost gives you a gross margin of 100. So on and so forth. Good crop, a better gross margin. Bragging rights up here is fantastic. That's the 1 in 10 year crop that we think about buying the place next door or selling up on. So you see what we have is 6 out of the 10 years where it was profitable and 4 where it wasn't. So what we need to do is tally up the losses in the loss-making years. See those 4 loss-making years, the total of them is $850 in those 4 loss-making years. So therefore we got to add that onto the $350, and we do it like this. It's averaged over 10 years, not just those 4. It's averaged over the whole 10 years. That's $850 divided by 10 is $85 a hectare. So we add 85 onto 350, which gives us a new average crop cost of $435. If we then are real with ourselves and say we've got an average crop cost of $435 a hectare, which covers our losses, and over a 10-year period, I have no idea when we're going to hit those losses, but we then do our numbers on an average crop cost. So we're going to need X amount of tonne per hectare to pay that back at a certain value. So the purple line takes us up to there. So the crop gross margin is now just slightly higher, and that is a very helpful tool that we teach in depth in our business fundamentals and grazing for profit, farming and grazing for profit school, of how to know your cost of production and how to set a higher target to cover your costs. So we have a gross margin of $47.50 per hectare per year over a 10-year period, even in the loss-making years. And so that's our way of telling. So this is what you can compare to other enterprises to see if cropping is good for you. So a lot of people tend to quote you the 6 years and neglect to mention the 4 that were losses. So what we've done here is quoted the whole lot. What we can do too is show you in time at an RCS ruminant nutrition course how to use feed curves and feed curve budgeting and your nutritional season. So the green dotted line there is the quality line, and the brown line is the quantity. And sometimes they are in deficit and sometimes they're overlapping. And so what we need to do is set our own feed curve on our own land with our own rainfall and seasonal conditions, and work out when's the best time to do things. When's the best, we call it biological calendar, occur for us. So I see people here, this wouldn't happen in Western Australia, but in South Australia, I see people calving right now. And that's for whatever reasons, but if you think about it, getting a calf on the ground is not that difficult, particularly right now when she's the mother, and the heifer particularly has very little fat reserves, so she's not going to give you a particularly difficult calving. But in 3 months' time, you wanted to get back in calf. So that's March, April, May, June, that you're wanting her to get back in calf when feed could be extraordinarily tight. She's trying to lactate. She's trying to do a whole lot of things and maintain herself, and particularly a second calf heifer, the heifer with her first calf on the ground, lactating, trying to grow and get back in calf again. You might have a total wipeout as a result of that. Whereas there's a better time of the year that if you put yourself in that in a heifer's or cow's shoes, you go, when would I really want to see a bull? Is it in June or is it in October? So that might be how you calculate one part of your biological calendar. So we have some upcoming RCS training courses. All of the face-to-face ones are, unfortunately, no, actually, I don't think that's quite true. Bonnie might elaborate on that in a second, but we've got Tamworth, Mergen, Toowoomba, Roma, Townsville, a bit Queensland heavy, one in New South Wales. There's 2 in New South Wales and 1 in Adelaide, close enough for you guys. So that's upcoming. We've got some grazing clinics over east, but the one that might interest you is the online grazing clinic, which commences 26th of March. It's 12 sessions online, and it's a really good way of doing the grazing clinic because you get a tutorial for an hour and a half, and then you get a week to go put it into practice. So whether it be feed budgeting. Did I mention feed budgeting was important? And there'll be lots of other things in ruminant nutrition as well, and drought planning. Then there's business fundamentals workshop. Again, there's an online one starting the 25th of March, and there's a face-to-face one in Brisbane. And then the ruminant nutrition course is a ripping course that helps you understand the inside of a rumen and how it works. And if you think there's something you might need to know about how a rumen functions and what makes an animal happy, by the virtue of that having a very highly functional vat of bugs in there, then the ruminant nutrition course might be for you. So again, I'd say make sure you hand this information down so that if you were caught in a tight situation, or you needed to have someone else know what your plans and your preparedness are, you pass that information down. Also, one thing I meant to mention about evaluating your business is ask yourself, how complex is my business? Again, complex businesses generally are nowhere near as profitable as simple ones. And that doesn't mean they're simplistic. It just means they're very straightforward and easy to understand. You have to be very, very keen, more keen than most people really think that they are keen, to run a complex business. So if there's an enterprise you have which is being kept just to satisfy somebody, I think it's time for a meeting to discuss why we're still doing that, and what would be a transition period that could help you with that. So, sorry, I meant to give you a full half hour for questions, but since no hands have gone up yet, I'd like to put it back to you, Bonnie, and see if we've got any questions based on that. And I'll flick back some slides if need be.
Thanks so much, Nick. That was awesome. I think it was really good to unpack different scenarios, and I saw people, or the ones that have their cameras on, readily writing down some notes, and yeah, so hopefully there's some good insights that have come out of that. I did forget to mention that this is being recorded and we will send it out, so if you did miss any of it or you wanted to go over it again, you'll get the recording of that so you can look at it again. And just on the courses, so yeah, there's obviously the online ones, and RegenWA has, well, through one of our projects funded through State NRM, provided some discounts for people to register, and they're actually discounts on the early bird prices as well. So it's a really good deal. And yeah, there's still time to register. And I know we've technically given out our 10 that we were going to, but there's another 10 for next year. But look, if any of you guys were really keen, yeah, I'd be happy to chat and see if we can still offer you guys a discount for either the grazing for profit or the business fundamentals course. Because yeah, would want, if you have got a lot out of this webinar with Nick and want to continue it on, it'd be a really great opportunity while there's still time to register and make use of that discount. So just, yeah, give me a buzz afterwards if you're keen. But yeah, no, I thought that was really great, but I'm happy to open it up now to anyone that wants to jump in and ask any questions or had any comments.
Yeah, I've got a question for Nick.
Right.
Darren. Hey, Nick, if in regards to putting in a crop for grazing or to put the header through, are we better off to be putting in a mixed grazing crop, or putting in a monoculture with the ability to put the header into it? With the main objective grazing, though.
I think that the each way bet in sort of, if I was going to be talking in your soils, Brownie, or in sort of my South Australian sort of mallee type soils, with we're taking a punt because we're going to wait for rain, I presume, and bang it in quick as we can and make use of that rain. That's what you're meaning? Yep.
Yeah, that's
okay.
right. Yep.
Good. So I would start off with a monoculture, and the reason I say that is that priming your soils, priming your country, you're already doing it. There's a pasture underneath it, so I would just, the pasture is going to come away with rain, so you don't need to kill it out. Just oversow it. Maybe look, you could just use a contact herbicide to take it backwards, or just overgraze it, intentionally overgraze it. Put some animals in there that it doesn't matter too much about to the animals. They'll be fine and running on a little bit of light feed, but they intentionally overgraze it, bang your crop in there, and so everything starts from zero, and it'll all grow together. Now, if you have your nutrition and your feeding, so use your, I like to use some of the budget that I had on chemicals, particularly for post-emergence, pre-emergence and post-emergence, which are quite expensive. I like to use those for fertilizer budget. So I like to feed the plants that I want to be healthy to outcompete those that I don't. So I'll tissue test. I'll tissue test small plants, both my preferentials and my weeds, and I'll see what there's a massive difference in. And quite often, I'll bet you London to a brick, mostly it's calcium to start with. And so I'll get some liquid calcium out there, which will probably fan the cereal along. You could put 2 cereals in, and if it happened to be a great cropping year, you can clean one out of another. And then you could probably harvest it and sell it for seed, and that's not such a bad thing. But seed cleaning is a very viable alternative. So I think it's better in the first instance to just go out with one variety, maybe 2. Don't get too funky too soon.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yep.
Having said that, I'll also see some summer covers. See, summer covers in these Mediterranean climates, it's unlikely they get a second chance. By that I mean you can. I have many cereal growers who ring me in December, particularly from Western Australia, moaning and bitching that they can't harvest because it's raining. You go, well, what a terrible problem to have. How come you just don't jump on the drill and just bang in a bit of quick something? Any old thing will do, just bang it in. Just go straight over the top of the stubble that you just harvested. If the rain is holding you up, well, they haven't got time to do that probably. I shouldn't have said Western Australians do that. South Australians do that. Western Australians wouldn't do that. And so there is an opportune time often. But when I say you don't get if that is a false germination, quite often it will run out of puff, and come Christmas or New Year, it might not be looking so good. The seasons come and the seasons go. When do we not get any rain over summer? Seldom. So those big seeds that I'm talking that generally go out in summer, well, they're big energy seeds. So there'll be some brassicas and oil seeds that you can bang in. People love sunflower because it's showy. You could even try all sorts of tropical things that might do okay. Keep your budget healthy. So don't spend too much on it in the first instance. Just trial it, and being ready to bang in a cover crop on time is more critical than anything when you're going to do a summer cover. But I've seen a summer cover with 70% died, 30% lived, and it looked awful come the end of that autumn. But they sowed into it, and the following year, it yielded over a tonne more to the hectare just because of the increased biological activity and probably a growth promoted mentality rather than a killing competition mentality. Long-winded answer, sorry, Brownie.
No, it's all good, Nick. Yeah, because I've just, I know barley's going to be about 350 tonne, but I've got onto another thing that's going to be $500 a tonne with about 6 or 7 different varieties in it. So that's where I was coming from.
Well, good. Skinny it down, because often when you do the calculation of how many seeds are going to go to the square metre, how many seeds are going into the ground per square metre, you'll go, that's probably excessive. If I was a seed salesman, it's very good for me. But if I'm a farmer running on a budget, I probably could nearly halve that, and I'll get, so use, instead of that makes it $250 a tonne, and that becomes more affordable.
Any other questions? I'm just mindful that we've technically got about 5 minutes left. If people did want to hang around and chat more, we can keep it going. But yeah, is there any other questions?
I've got one, Bonnie, if that's right.
Yep.
This is, I guess I'm still at more of a hobby scale, so it might not be as relevant for everyone else, but I'm just going to pick your brains, Nick, while you're here. We've just got a little 27-acre place, and I dropped in a summer cover or summer and winter cover last March. Got some really good germination on it. And what I didn't do was sort out a liquid spraying rig to give it any follow-up food. So it was an interesting trial to see how it actually went without any follow-up. I found on our poor sandy soils that didn't have much coming up, it actually did quite well because the fertiliser we put down was taken up by those plants. But in the better soil, the wild oats just went completely nuts and overtook everything. But that's good because obviously the soil's better over there. So what I'm wondering for this year is I'll have 2 different ways of approaching each soil type. But with the wild oats, would we actually be better off spraying them out to try and grow a better succession or get some more diversity in there, or should we just embrace wild oats as good sheep food?
Great question, and it's a wonderful indication of a jumping off point. It's not a starting point. You're well and truly started, but it's jumping to the next level. That's what I'm meaning, and so wild oats. So now they'd be dry and dead, obviously, and gone to seed. And so you're thinking, gosh, I've got a big seed bank there. What's that going to do? Now, because you've primed your soils, priming soils is about getting a biological population down there. Bacteria moves into fungal over time. And the less damage you do to that by spraying it out, the more it stays where it is. Every time you spray it out, it goes back to bacterial, which is putting it back to, the Stone Age when you're trying to get it into an age further down. So personally, I would flatten it with some stock, like intentionally overgraze it. They'll probably lick up a bit of that oat and turn it into manure. There'll be some seed bank there for sure. And you can then oversow it again come the rains. Is that what you're thinking? You will oversow it come the rains?
Yes. Yeah, that was the plan. Yep. Well,
I'd oversow it with a little bit higher succession speed. So I would use, I love like a feed barley, like a Moby barley or Cape barley. They're old varieties, but they persist. There are newer ones, but they're more expensive, and you don't need it to persist because it's an annual. What the hell? All you want to do is jump out of the ground and protect what's growing underneath. Then I would have some cheap and cheerful clovers. If you're verging on an alkaline soil, then maybe you'll go up to chucking in a Burmetic, maybe. And so there's all of your nitrogen issues solved with the legumes. And then Cape barley is a great protector for rye. If you want to get in some cocksfoot or phalaris, people say that perennials won't grow here, and then you go, well, what's that on the side of the road? And it's often a good stand of cocksfoot or phalaris or fescue or something like that. But you need to prime the soils first. People that go straight in with perennials generally fail because the soil's not ready. It's still too bacterial. Don't worry about wild oats though. I've seen animals get fat on them and they will disappear out the system. It looks a bit raggedy in the first year or two, and everyone's looking over their fence saying, oh, you should be spraying them out, or you should be getting rid of this or that. And you just got to hold your resolve, but have a plan.
Yep. Thank you. That was what I needed to hear, because it's actually the conventional neighbour over the fence that is the one who's offering to spray them out for me. And I was like, oh, I don't feel like this is the right option, but now I have a response for him. So thanks for that.
Yeah. And if you have, I'll tell you what's really handy is a little roller. I'll put 2 things. You can go and get yourself a firefighter and an IBC container, like 1,000 litres. I'll put it on a 7x5 trailer. It'll fit okay. got one of those with a boomless jet out the back, and that will get you any old nutrient you want put out. You can either make your own brews. That's not a bad way for getting, some foliar. It's a great way of getting foliars out. It doesn't need to be micronized through micron jets. And I just use the wind to my advantage. I just keep turning into the wind, zigzag back and forward and turn into the wind. That's good, cheap and cheerful way to get your nutrients out. And then if you wanted to, I'm not sure how many animals you're trying to graze at the moment, but if you've got a problem area, roll it, lay it flat, get it on the ground.
Yep.
Because your small water cycle, as you get into the autumn, your small water cycle starts to improve. So you'll get moisture on ground level, and the best thing to do to hold that there is have a thatch on top of it. Not much of it will go into the soil. People are a bit misguided about how much will be drawn into the soil. It's not. It just sits on top as a armour, as Gabe Brown would say, armour on your soil. But it'll be really helpful for a little bit of activity in the moisture zone.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Nic, I've got a question for you. With the green peck and the barley straw, do you just put out barley straw until they finish eating it and just keep it out there, or just a little bit at a time? Or
put it. The first test error is to go and buy a bale of good quality straw at the horse shop. So whatever horse shop you got nearby, buy one bale and take it out there, because horse people will not put up with anything other than good straw. So that will have been baled straight off the back of the header, and it'll cost you $20 for the experiment. And if that disappears rapidly, you know you need it. Then you can go and buy some bit lower quality old stuff that might still baled on time off the back of the header. And I would, what I would do is put it in a feeder so that I can drag it around. If the feeder's on a sled, I love it particularly. I can just drag it around as you move your animals. But if you can't do that, then just feed out an amount. And I would say I had cows with adequate. See, in each mouthful of green pick, there is adequate energy. So it's always a balance of protein and energy. In fact, it's very high in energy. Only trouble is they just can't get enough mouthfuls. So at a protein to energy ratio of 6 to 1, 7 to 1, they're dying to get the energy, but they can't. So what you need is you can use bentonite, sodium bentonite, as a lick, and that's like clay, and that holds up the throughput a bit, and we'll take a bit of the fizz out of the ammonium that's created. Ruminant ammonia is a good thing. It's just in excess when you've got excess protein, and so you need that. They call it scratch factor, ruminant scratch factor. I call it carbon, and it's just got to go in there to pack it out. Because if you were to hop in the rumen at that time, it would look like pea soup in there, and the back end is looking a bit like pea soup too. That's the kind of stuff dairy farmers get down their neck at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, was there one last question? No. Well, Brett, go for it.
Yeah, g'day, Nic. Thanks very much for your presentation, and Bonnie for putting it together. Took heaps of notes. We're a small farm down near Boyer, and we're only a year in, so we've done a lot of observation of our property and that in this first year, just to try and see where we're at, and kept numbers down. I suppose mine's a bit more of a general question, like your experience with like stacking enterprises as opposed to sort of getting one up to, say, minimum viable scale, and then spinning another plate after that. We're just trying to work out our best approach to become not necessarily profitable, but break even at least. within the next couple of years. So yeah, a bit of a general question on income generation, I suppose.
Okay, what's your favourite enterprise out of all of them? If you had to just choose one, what's yours, Brad?
I would have said the grazing cattle early on, but we've become quite fond of the sheep. So we've got both. So we run them as a flirt and get them in the play. But yeah, we've also got a small farm stay accommodation enterprise going as well. So
if you can do each of them jolly well, then hang on to it. There's nothing wrong with spinning a few plates. You have to be good at it. But we all know what happens when you stop spinning one or you take your eyes off it. And you know, you can often drop the ball in hospitality because you were doing something else that the people coming in paying you for the hospitality weren't aware of, and they don't really care. They just want a great hospitality. But the reason I ask you the question is, you know, always kick with your preferred foot, and it's very hard to mess something up if you love it. I had horticulture forced upon me because I took on a business that, you know, came as a hand-me-down, and it was great cash flow if you did it right. But you can't do horticulture even a little bit wrong, because any one of those days will trip you up. Pasture, with your growing protein, you're running ruminants, same rules apply for sheep and cattle, so they're not a flirt. Is an easy way of just rolling it all into one. And if you are monitoring your grass, did I mention do a feed budget? Yeah. If you're doing a feed budget, you won't get into trouble. So if you then said, I'll tell you what, it allows me to be a stacker of enterprises because I'm doing a feed budget. And the beauty of it is you'll have your less preferred flock or herd that will be your dispensable flock or herd. And you'll go, you know what, it doesn't bother me. I sell them, I go and get another one later on when it rains. But I do have some sacred cows or sacred ewes that I do keep. But having said that, the other thing I can tell you is that there's another name for diversification, and it's a big effing mess. And there's a lot of people that took advice to diversify, and they didn't fix the problem. In fact, they created one, and they just created a big mess. So I've seen people get through really tough times well because they only had one enterprise. They just did it really, really well. And there's two types of doing things well. One is attention to detail, and that means it sort of infers you're a detail person. And the other one is meticulous execution of the task. And they're kind of different. And I like both of them, but meticulous execution of the task means if you're going to do something in that enterprise, do it well.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I think we're at a good balance at the moment. It's just what next to try and bring some income in. So yeah, thanks for that. We'll explore that a bit further.
Good. Anyone who's taken the time to come on here is always welcome to email me. But Bonnie shared those details with you. I think that you're welcome to email me with any questions, and I'll definitely get back to you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Nick.
Appreciate
that. Christy, you think you had
quick
comment?
Yeah, just a quick one. Brett, you're probably already all across it, but if you want Warren Pensini's details, he's Boyup Brook area as well, and he's doing some pretty incredible stuff with his grazing, and he loves cows too. So if you've got his details, great. If not, either hit me or Bonnie up and we can give them to you.
Yeah, thanks. We went out there to his place with a Maloon open day. So yeah, I met Warren that day. So yeah, good fella.
Yep, all across it.
Thanks for that.
No worries.
Good link up. That was a good day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice that, Nick, that's really generous. You're offering, if people want to reach out, and the offer's obviously there as well. If anyone was that hadn't seen the opportunity about the online courses coming up, just please reach out to me, and yeah, we can see what we can do just for that continuous learning. And it's been really good actually hearing you guys share as well. And yeah, it's been a really good discussion. So we might leave it at that for now, just so everyone can get back to doing what they were doing. But yeah, big thanks to Nic. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing that with all of us, and for everyone taking the time to join and listen in. I really think it was a really practical discussion. Oh, Darren, yep.
I was just going to say, just before we go, I can highly recommend that Ruminant Nutrition, the online course. It was brilliant. It was really good, easy to get along with. If you didn't understand much, it was a fantastic course.
Cool. Oh, that's good. Thanks for that. Good to know. Yeah, it's a great way. I think, in person's great, but it's really good as well that there's these online options as well for people to have a bit more of that flexibility and just get a taste of it. And look, if there's interest in some WA workshops, we can certainly look to work with RCS on something, whether it's this year or next year. So open to your thoughts. But yeah, thanks, Nic. I'll send the recording out soon, and please reach out and keep in touch.
Thank you for having me. I do appreciate it.
No worries. And good luck for the season, everyone.